Hello, welcome to La Excellence. Our first issue is 127th Constitutional Amendment Bill 2021. Recently in the Parliament, both the houses have unanimously passed the 127th Constitutional Amendment Bill 2021. What is the purpose of this bill? There's a constitutional amendment called 102nd Constitutional Amendment Act. This act has introduced two new articles, Article 338B and Article 342A. Under this particular Constitutional Amendment Act, National Commission for OBC is made as a constitutional body. Recognition of backward classes, socially and educationally backward classes, is done by the President of India in consultation with the governors. Earlier, states used to send the list to the central government and center notifies it. Now the power of states have been removed. In Maratha reservation case, Supreme Court has upheld this. It said that yes, this particular constitutional amendment said center has the power, so we can't do. So states, they don't have the power. In this context, many states have criticized, especially during Maratha reservation case, Maharashtra, they have protested that the power of states have been taken away. In this context, the government through Parliament is passing this Constitutional Amendment Bill, 127th Constitutional Amendment Bill 2021. Once it's passed and assent is given by the President of India, it will become 105th Constitutional Amendment Act. Now, states are also requesting for removing of the ceiling, 50% ceiling on reservations. Many states, Maharashtra and other states also, they are asking for reservation of 50% ceiling in case of provision of reservations. In many states, inclusion of certain communities under OBCs, there are many demands for that. That's why states are requesting for removal of the ceiling. But under Indira Sahni case, Supreme Court said removal of this one or without having any limit, provision of reservations is against the right of equality. That's why under Indira Sahni case it has been withheld. Recently, even in the Maratha reservation case, Supreme Court has withheld the ceiling kept under Indira Sahni case. Next issue is criminalization of politics. That means people with criminal antecedents entering into the politics. Supreme Court under many occasions have tried to address this issue. Recently, it has directed the political parties to publish the criminal history of the individual, of the candidate. Let's say a party is recommending a candidate. It has to publish the criminal data, criminal history of that candidate within 48 hours of the announcement of the name of that candidate. They choose the candidates beforehand, right? So within 48 hours of announcing the candidate's name, it has to upload the criminal antecedents and related data in its website. Supreme Court has mandated it. In 2020, Supreme Court has requested the political parties to publish the criminal history, but they have not done properly. In this context, this time limit has been decided by the Supreme Court now. Next issue is Ujjwala 2.0 scheme, known as Pradhana Mantri Ujjwala 2.0. That means already we implemented Ujjwala 1.1, now 1.0. This is Ujjwala 2.0. That means second version. Under this one, generally under Ujjwala scheme, the person who is getting benefit under this particular scheme, they have to provide the proof of residence. Now in this new scheme, even migrant labor, migrant workers, migrant women, they also can get the access to LPG by giving self-declaration. There is no need of submitting the residential proof. They can just provide the self-declaration. Under the scheme, financial support of rupees 1600 for each LPG connection to the BPL households will be provided. Deposit-free LPG collections are provided. And this one 2.0 will provide first refill at free of cost for the beneficiaries. Ujjwala 1.1, it has targeted 50 million connections. Now under 2.0, we are targeting additional 10 million LPG connections to the eligible beneficiaries. Next issue is India-Sri Lanka relations. The new envoy to Sri Lanka has mentioned that there are thorny issues between India and Sri Lanka. But these needs to be addressed amicably, and the strategic cooperation between India and Sri Lanka should further be enhanced. In this context, recently Sri Lanka has cancelled a deal in developing the East Container Terminal Port in the Colombo port. India, Japan, Sri Lanka. This is the trilateral agreement, and they dropped it. They said domestic compulsions, because of that we are unable to give. They provided the project in the West Container Terminal. And then within Sri Lankan country, there are many requests for repeal of provincial councils in the east and northern provinces, Jaffna Peninsula, etc. There is an accord between India and Sri Lanka, which is known as India-Lanka Accord 1987. Under that, provincial councils is being discussed, and it is added to the Sri Lankan constitution. Sri Lanka added provincial councils to its constitution. Why India involved in this? Constitutional scheme of Sri Lanka is its own domestic issue, right? Because to protect the Tamilian interests, India has involved in this. So such issues needs to be addressed, and India and Sri Lanka trade should move in a strategic direction rather than mere transactional direction. These are the points discussed by the new envoy appointed to Sri Lanka. Next is Telecom Sector requires support. Recently, Bharti Airtel and Vodafone Idea. So they requested support from the government. Why? Telecom sector is now facing many issues. Unsustainable pricing, because every telecom service provider, they try to reduce the price as much as possible. Now the prices has become much low, because of which they are unable to cross the margin. They are not getting profits, they are unable to cross the margin. There are low returns, and it is highly capital intensive environment. In this context, 3+1 industry, Bharti Airtel, Vodafone Idea, Zio, 3 private companies plus BSNL. So now earlier there were many competitors. Now 3+1 model, and these three are also are reeling under a debt because of unsustainable pricing and other factors. In this context, government should provide proper support. Then only our telecom sector can be protected. And now as we are moving for more and more digital services and digital services oriented economy, healthy telecommunication sector helps in furthering this particular goal. In this context, government should provide necessary support. Next issue is UNSC debate on maritime security. India has assumed presidency of UNSC for a month. In this context, it has conducted a session on maritime security. Under that, 5-point plan for maritime security throughout the world that has been pronounced. First one is worldwide cooperation. For that, first one is removing the barriers to legitimate maritime trade. That is the first point. Second one, settling maritime disputes peacefully based on international law, that is UNCLOS, United Nations Convention on Law of Seas, and jointly facing the natural disasters and maritime threats by various non-state actors such as pirates, etc., preserving maritime environment and resources, and finally, encouraging the responsible maritime connectivity. See, for example, China is connecting various littoral countries under its One Belt One Road scheme. Under that context, under Maritime Silk Road scheme. So, in that context, this is a indirect reference to China's project. So, responsible maritime connectivity should be there. And UNSC accepted the legislative framework of UNCLOS. UNSC has accepted the legislative framework of UNCLOS. These two can be considered as the success of this particular summit. But then, we wanted to build a broad framework, but we again revolved around China and USA issue. China, USA. On the one side, Russia and China became isolated countries in this debate. On the other side, USA, India, these are the countries which are seen as a separate bloc. But this maritime security is a global issue. So this needs to be dealt in a more comprehensive way. Next issue is delays in judicial appointments. Recently, Supreme Court has questioned the government and it has asked that our collegium has recommended the names, but you have not appointed. Are you willing to appoint the members and chairmen for tribunals or not? That's the question asked by the Supreme Court to the government. In this context, in many tribunals, there are lack of presiding officers, and in this context, selection committee recommendations are not yet implemented. 455 vacancies are there in high courts. So this leads to judicial delay. Justice delayed is justice denied. In this context, why tribunals and appointments to tribunals is such important thing? Why Supreme Court came voluntarily and questioned the government? Because earlier, high courts has the jurisdiction of on various issues. Now in its place tribunals came up. So any kind of failure in adjudicating or disposing the disputes by the tribunals leads to justice delay. As we said, justice delayed is justice denied. To avoid that, judicial appointments should be made on a timely basis. Next issue is improvising the civil registration system. Civil registration system, it is maintained under Registration of Births and Deaths Act 1969. Under that, registration of births and deaths and stillbirths is made mandatory in India. Now, as CRS data is not proper, is not updated regularly, because of which we are using another criteria known as excess deaths criteria. That means what is the difference of the numbers that we have observed as compared to deaths of last year as compared to this year. Let's say deaths in July 2020 and deaths in July 2021. We compare the two and we calculate the excess deaths as the excess mortality caused by COVID 19. Why are we going for this kind of uncertain and improper data? Because we don't have proper registration system. This needs to be improvised. Why there is no proper system? Because CRS requires, civil registration system requires lot of coordination from hospitals to states to center. So this coordination requires a lot of investment in awareness, a lot of investment in the implementation structures. Finally, sports ecosystem. India's Olympics, recent performance in Olympics, on the one side can be seen as impressive because it's the highest medal tally in the past century. But if we consider the number of people in India, that is population, this number is very, very low. In this context, to make India as a sporting hub, we need to nurture the culture of sports. Different localities, they have different culture of sports. In this context, professional scientific help needs to be provided for the sports persons. State of the art infrastructure needs to be built. Funding should be there. Let's say Khelo India scheme, Khelo India program that provides financial support for the sports person. Such schemes needs to be more inclusive. They should reach more and more people. If you observed, Northeast and few states in northern India, that is Haryana and Punjab, they have produced most of the Olympic medals. Why? Sporting culture is vibrant in those states. Such sporting cultures needs to be promoted, nurtured in all parts of the India. These are the articles. Thank you very much. All the very best.